The dense forests of the Carpathian Mountains in Romania were bathed in the soft golden light of dawn. Mist clung to the pine trees, creating an ethereal glow over the rugged landscape. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of moss and earth, and the distant call of a woodpecker echoed through the trees. In this wild haven, a young brown bear named Dragomir roamed, his thick fur blending seamlessly with the autumnal hues of the forest. Dragomir was a solitary creature, a 2-year-old bear who had recently left his mother to explore the vast wilderness on his own. The Carpathians are a sanctuary for Europe's largest population of brown bears, but they are not without threats. Poachers, driven by the illegal trade in bear pelts and paws, often set brutal snares in the forest. These traps, designed to capture large animals, posed a deadly risk to the region's wildlife. Dragomir, curious and inexperienced, was unaware of the danger lurking beneath the fallen leaves. As he lumbered through a clearing, sniffing for berries, his massive paw stepped into a hidden snare. The steel cable snapped tight around his leg, biting into his flesh. Dragomir let out a guttural roar, the sound reverberating through the forest. He thrashed wildly, trying to free himself, but the snare only tightened, its sharp edges cutting deeper. Pain clouded his senses, and his powerful body slumped to the ground, exhausted. The forest, once a place of freedom, now felt like a prison. Hours passed, and Dragomir's strength waned. His deep brown eyes, usually full of curiosity, were dulled by pain. The snare was anchored to a tree, preventing any escape. Nearby, a small stream babbled, its sound a cruel reminder of the freedom just out of reach. The young bear's low groans filled the air, a desperate plea that went unanswered until fate intervened. Caleb, a wildlife ranger, was on his morning patrol. He had dedicated his life to protecting the Carpathian wildlife, spending countless hours tracking bears and monitoring poaching activity. His weathered Jeep bounced along a dirt trail, the radio crackling with updates from his colleagues. As he navigated a narrow path, he heard a faint, anguished sound, a bear in distress. His heart raced. He knew that sound meant trouble, and time was of the essence. Caleb parked his Jeep and grabbed his gear, a backpack with medical supplies, a pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters, and a tranquilizer dart gun for safety. He moved cautiously through the forest, following the sound of the bear's moans. The underbrush was thick, and he pushed through brambles, his boots sinking into the damp earth. Finally, he spotted Dragomir, his massive form slumped against a tree, the snare cruelly gripping his leg. Blood stained the fur around the wound, and his breathing was shallow. Caleb's first instinct was to rush to his aid, but he knew bears, even injured ones, could be unpredictable. He crouched behind a tree, assessing the situation. Dragomir's eyes met his, and for a moment they locked gazes. There was no aggression in his stare, only pain and a flicker of hope. Caleb whispered softly, his voice barely audible, hoping to calm him. "I'm here to help, big guy. Just hold on." He noticed the snare was a heavy-duty model, likely set for a bear or boar. Its thick cable was designed to hold fast, and the anchor was deeply embedded in the tree. Caleb knew he couldn't wait for backup. The nearest ranger station was an hour away, and Dragomir's condition was deteriorating. He had to act now, or the poachers might return to claim their prize. Taking a deep breath, Caleb stepped into the clearing, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. He held his hands up, palms open, to show he meant no harm. Dragomir let out a low growl, but it was weak, more a warning than a threat. Caleb's heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay calm. He set the tranquilizer gun on the ground, deciding to rely on his instincts and tools instead. If he could free the bear without sedating him, it would reduce the risk to his already weakened body. Kneeling a few feet away, Caleb examined the snare. The cable had cut deep into Dragomir's leg, and the surrounding fur was matted with blood. He spoke softly, his voice steady despite his nerves. "We're going to get you out of this, okay? Just stay with me." He pulled the bolt cutters from his pack and began working on the cable. The steel was tough, resisting his efforts, and his arms ached as he squeezed the handles with all his strength. Dragomir watched him, his breathing labored. Every so often he let out a soft whimper as if urging him to hurry. The forest was eerily quiet, save for the sound of metal grinding against metal. Caleb's hands shook, but he kept at it, his focus unwavering. After what felt like an eternity, the cable snapped with a sharp twang. Dragomir flinched, but the snare loosened, freeing his leg. The bear let out a deep, rumbling groan and shifted his weight, testing his injured leg. Caleb backed away slowly, giving him space. He grabbed his medical kit and prepared to treat the wound, but he knew he had to be quick. Dragomir might not tolerate his presence for long. Using antiseptic wipes, he cleaned the gash as best he could from a safe distance, tossing the wipes toward the wound and hoping the bear wouldn't react. To his relief, Dragomir remained still, his eyes fixed on him. Caleb then applied a temporary bandage, wrapping it loosely around the leg to stem the bleeding. He knew it wouldn't last long in the wild, but it would give Dragomir a fighting chance until he could heal naturally. As he worked, he cursed the poachers under his breath, their greed endangering such a magnificent creature. "You don't deserve this," he murmured to Dragomir. "You belong here, free." With the bandage in place, Caleb packed his tools and retreated to a safe distance. He watched as Dragomir slowly rose to his feet, wobbling but determined. He took a tentative step, then another, his injured leg dragging slightly. The forest seemed to hold its breath, as if cheering him on. Caleb's eyes welled with tears. He had done it. Dragomir was free. As he returned to his jeep, Caleb kept an eye on the bear. To his surprise, Dragomir followed him at a distance, his massive form moving silently through the trees. He paused, watching him. Dragomir stopped too, his gaze steady and calm. It was as if he understood what Caleb had done for him. For a fleeting moment, Caleb felt a connection, a silent thank you from a creature of the wild. He climbed into his jeep and drove away, glancing in the rearview mirror. Dragomir stood at the edge of the clearing, watching him go. The mist was lifting and the first rays of sunlight pierced the canopy, illuminating his fur. Caleb smiled, his heart full. He knew he'd never forget this moment. Over the next few weeks, Caleb continued his patrols, always keeping an eye out for Dragomir. He reported the snare to the authorities, who launched an investigation into the poaching activity. One evening, as he drove through the forest, he spotted a familiar figure in the distance. It was Dragomir, his limp barely noticeable now. He paused, looked toward the jeep, and let out a low huff before disappearing into the trees. Caleb knew it was his way of saying he was okay. The bond they had formed that day in the forest was something he'd carry forever. It was a reminder of why he did this work, to give creatures like Dragomir a chance to live free, to roam the wilds they called home. Thank you for joining me on this journey of rescue and hope. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share to support our mission to save animals. Together, we can make a difference for the wildlife of the Carpathians and beyond.